There's lots of average beef Wellingtons online. This is my recipe for the absolute best. So this is going to be quite a long, in-depth one, but I thought I'd just give it the proper time. But we're going to show you a few simple sort of like hacks. My thing with Wellingtons is, I don't like the way that the layers don't perfectly mix together. So you'll have your Duxelles and then your crepes around everything else. So I think it's so much better if you can get like it really nice and compact. And the way that some restaurants do it that I've worked, they'll use a chicken mousse. So a chicken mousse is quite an easy thing to make. This is just chicken breast diced and it's frozen. Use a heavy knife and then just, this is all going to go into your blender with a few egg whites. So this is going to get a really nice smooth consistency. The reason we're going to use a chicken mousse is quite simply, it expands when it cooks. It makes your Wellington look really stunning because the chicken mousse expands around the fillet, adding an extra sort of layer of protection to the meat. So you can get a really nice cooking on the meat. But then as it cooks and expands, it pushes the crepes outwards, and then that really helps get a really nice perfect slice out of the Wellington once it cools and relaxes. So for me, it's always a must to get a perfectly executed welly to use a chicken mousse alongside your Duxelles. For those that don't know how to make a chicken mousse, it's really, really simple. I've got a nice strong blender here. I'm going to add my chicken in there. So what's really important when you're emulsifying things, you really don't want it to go above 4 or 5 degrees. And this is all this is. It's just an emulsion. So 2 egg whites into roughly about 500 grams of chicken. Salt will start to break it down right from the beginning. It might look like quite a lot of salt. It's got a dual purpose. Seasons it, but also makes a really nice, firm, smooth chicken mousse. If you have a look at that, that's like perfect dice. So what we're using the egg whites for is actually basically just moisture and water. And now we're just going to continue to run that until it's really, really nice and smooth. If you've made a Wellington before and you've encountered the problems of the layers being quite loose, and I mean, it's one of those things that's done so well by so many people that when you put all the work into doing a Wellington at home and that big reveal moment, you know, and you cut through it and it's not quite perfect, it is a bit of a kick in the teeth. And I think the real reason you get that is just because people are using different types of technique. The blending time doesn't really matter because you can blend it for as long as possible before it gets warm. The longer the better, until it hits about 4 or 5 degrees, in which case then you need to stop. It's probably just like fridge temperature, so always keep your sort of hands on the side of the bowl. And as soon as you don't feel like it's like ice cold, that's when you want to sort of start thinking about wrapping it up. Okay, whilst that works, I'm going to start on my crepe. Now the crepe's the easiest part about the whole thing. You know, when you go into all the effort of making a Wellington, you might as well just go the whole hog and do a pancake that adds a really nice different layer of colour and texture. Typically the one that I've seen the most is either a spinach or a parsley pancake. So really nice vivid green colour. 3 eggs go in, milk goes in, flour goes in, good amount of spinach. Now that's going to release quite a lot of moisture as well. And that's going to blitz until really nice and vibrant and green and just a little bit warm, so it just starts to release the chlorophyll. Full speed, 4.5 minutes. So you can see it's got a much nicer sort of shade of green. And that's finished. Super easy, super simple recipe. Any blender doing a NutriBullet. Obviously our blenders are really high powered, but a normal blender, if you get a little bits of parsley in there, it just, you know, it's not going to make a difference to the actual flavour of anything. Back to our mousse, and it should, you can see now the frost is starting to sort of alleviate a little bit from there, but it's still before the mousse consistency. This is what will start to happen. It'll start to move around in the bowl as it sort of becomes unfrozen, and now this is basically the last stage. So that total has probably been in there for about 6 minutes so far. The thing that all people always get wrong with this, they use the word mousse too literally. So they imagine, oh, I'll add my whipped cream and then I'll give it a nice voluminous lift at the end. And that's not what you want to do. It should be, a mousse should be really firm and nice and rigid and hold its shape. That's what it's being used for in this circumstance. So cream, all it does, basically acts as a little bit of fat just to make it not too spongy. It gives it the texture of being nice and light. This is now, you know, almost at the consistency of being a mousse. So just take it that little bit further, and we can still afford to do that. Like I said, you sort of not limited on time, you're limited on temperature. I'm actually just going to show you a really quick way to do a mushroom brunoise. So, absolute gangster, but this is how I always do it. So I break up my mushrooms. This is ultimately what I do, is I'll put it in a mixer like this. So just breaking these up slightly just helps the blender get a really nice smooth brunoise. These are a chestnut mushroom, but they'll go to nothing. So you'll need a load of mushrooms to cover a whole fillet. Okay, right, let's have a look again at our chicken mousse. There we go. So you can see the change that it's had. This is now super pale, super light and almost fluffy, and it's got this consistency of, hate to say this, it's not going to be the most attractive, but like wallpaper paste. So the water, the loose water from the egg white has bound the protein particles for the mousse. I've got rid of all my condensation on the bowl, so what I really don't want to do is take this too much further. So what I'm going to do is just give it another 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute, add my cream, and then that's it, it'll be finished. Just a light splash of cream. 10 seconds literally. Cream gives it a little bit of lightness. There we go. Technique to make a chicken mousse. And it's super stiff. So I know that that's going to add basically everything that I need it to add to my Wellington. This is something that will set. If you break it up and mess around with it too much after it's set, it won't have the same consistency. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the fridge, add the mushrooms once they've been sauteed off into this little fridge down here. Mushrooms go in. And sometimes you might just get these little odd bits that bounce to the top. But what I've done is, that was probably what, 3 seconds, 4 seconds? And then that's a perfect Duxelles. I'm afraid no nice easy way to do a brunoise, which is what we're doing next. Whack your pan onto a nice high heat, got a little bit of oil in there. Browning this off in batches until it's really nice. What you want to do is basically just get rid of all the moisture out of there. Realistically, with this amount of mushrooms, 3 goes. And don't crowd the pan, otherwise it's going to take longer. We're just top tailing these shallots, removing the skin, and then I can get a really nice fine brunoise. Remove the layers like this. Can't really be too aggressive with this. Mushrooms get a really nice flavour when they're cooked at a high temperature. So this is going to give the Wellington and the mousse a really good, strong mushroomy flavour. What we want to do is we want to get a really nice firm consistency to our Wellington. If you've got too much moisture in the mushrooms, that will start to leak out. The meat juices will all start to leak out, and that will start to affect those layers. There's a right way to chop a shallot and a wrong way to chop a shallot. Ultimately, does it matter that this is finely brunoise? Absolutely not. But I think it's really good practice to know how to do a brunoise. And yeah, there's a viral video of Marco, and they just gave him a board to show, and he just like absolutely blitzed it. The reason we use shallots is because they're a little bit sweeter and a little bit more tender, and they've got a punchier sort of raw allium flavour than an onion. It makes that whole thing even more delicate. So what we've got now is all of the moisture has gone out of those mushrooms, and instead what we've got is they're starting to caramelise and get a really nice colour. So yeah, with a brunoise, all you're doing is top and tailing a shallot. It helps if you get a banana shallot that's got really specific this, but this shallot here, the reason I didn't use this is because if you cut this one open, it has 3 different sections. So you can't really do, it's really annoying, but you can't really do a perfect brunoise out of a shallot like this, and you waste a lot more. So I would always use those in sauces or stocks. Are you going to be able to find time to do a Wellington after you come home from work? No, you're not. But if you're going to devote your entire Sunday to doing it, it's these little details, you know. If you imagine we're in here day in, day out, just thinking about ways to make things better and better and better, you know. And if you've got the time, learning these tiny little extra steps does help to elevate. With garlic, I always find the best way to do a really fine brunoise is just to start right at the bottom, and then obviously you've not got the root attached like you would with an onion. So I just go partially all the way through, and almost like the way I think about it, it's almost like fanning an avocado, but really, really, really fine, and then go through the top, down on the middle, and then just down. There you go. No need to go through it. Just hammer through it once just to make sure everything's separated, but that's fine enough for garlic. And this is the last batch. And then I'm just going to whack my brunoise, shallots and garlic into this. So you just want to lightly soften your shallots and cook out your garlic. So 2 minutes, should be ready. This goes out, and we're going to just put that quickly into the blast chiller. that's going into a chicken mousse, and it's a high-risk product. Just onto a nice flat tray. So this is the thing, I mean, when you've got a blast chiller, you can speed the process up, but ideally all these things, like, you know, chilling the mushrooms down, chilling the mousse, it's going to add at least 20 minutes to the process. So now we're going to start on our pancakes. Pancakes something you can do like ahead of time because they do hold really well. Okay, so put your pancake mix in, and then just let it set, and then just run off the excess into the container. And then you know you've got one nice uniform complete pancake. Start it off on a high heat and then just turn it down. When you turn it down like that, the steam you can start to see will naturally separate the pancake from the base of the pan. This mix will all just come down naturally, and then all you want to do, just lightly bring that pancake off the sides and then just let it set. Perfect. You know, it adds a colour and it adds structure and support to the Wellington. Pancakes starts to come away, take it out, easy peasy. That amount of pancakes will be absolutely fine for what we're trying to do. Now we've got our mousse, pancakes, Duxelles. We need to grill off our meat. So I've got a centre cut fillet. I'm just going to go and grill it off upstairs. The always thing about seasoning a Wellington is like you're not going to, normally you'll slice the steak and season all through the layers. So I just season a bit extra on the outside. So a good amount of salt. You don't need to get too much colour on it. You can do it in a pan if you want. We've got a grill here, so I'm just doing it in the grill. I mean, you're not cooking it in any way, shape, form. You're literally just sealing it in. It's as simple as that. So, I mean, the purpose of sealing it is just so you get a nice caramelisation and a flavour on the outside, and the liquid from when it comes out doesn't leak down into the pastry as much. Remember to do both sides as well. Just giving it a bit of colour. You take it too far, you cook your fillet, and that's not what we want to do. Okay, so we're just going to start building our welly now. To do that, what we're going to do is add this mushroom Duxelles to the chicken mousse. So this will really nicely season the chicken mousse. Sort of whiteness from the chicken mousse with little flecks of mushroom in there. And then this is actually a sustainable cling film that we've managed to source. It's made out of fully recycled plastic and very recyclable. So I'm just going to lay my pancakes down. Don't want a massively thick layer, so take off these jagged edges. So all you need is basically a good layer that can go comfortably all the way around the Wellington without leaving any excess. So I seasoned that and seared it off, and then I just allowed it to cool. So obviously residual comes out of that. As it cools, I'm just going to dry that off nicely. The Wellington kind of loses its shape when, if you imagine it's cooking, there's lots of steam coming out and moisture. So the less moisture you can sort of guarantee in the mix, the better. Just going to put some nice Dijon mustard over the nice dry fillet. Dijon and whole grain mustard actually thicken as they cook. It's quite a nice little feature. So if you're actually adding it to a sauce, you can actually think about it also as a thickener, not just a seasoning. Okay, right, we're going to start next layer. Fairly thin layer of chicken mousse because you want to focus on the beef, but we just need to make sure that it's nice and even. Full transparency, this recipe is we've now filmed 3. Trying to get something that's absolutely immaculate because it's on our Christmas Day menu at Fallow. So we really feel in the pressure to make it like the best Wellington you could possibly get. You want to be able to see all the defined layers, super consistent throughout, so really nice even cooking. So lots of things to think about with a Wellington, but I think the most important thing for me is the cooking and the beef and the crispness of the pastry and then the layers in between. So when you've done that, you want to kind of just check, and that's not going to be quite enough to coat the entire fillet. So I'm just going to keep going right the way to the end. And then if it is too much, I'll show you what to do. It's not too difficult. Just trim it off as you roll. The cooking's also super important. A lot of the worry about people cooking Wellington comes from the fact that you can't see or feel the steak in the middle, which is completely fair enough. Just check that now. So you want at least the circumference again. I think that's just about right. Now I'm going to roll it. You see I've got quite a lot of excess pancake here, so I'm just going to take a little bit of that away. Might damage it when we roll it. So ideally, you've got this little lip here. Ideally, that wants to be the overhang, and we're going to trim that up as we roll it all the way. So you can see we've gone all the way around. So we want to make sure that that mousse is enough to coat the entire layer, which is just slightly not enough, which is absolutely no problem whatsoever. Just going to put a little bit more mousse on this side as well. Start again from the bottom. Nice consistent layer. Okay. Perfect. And that's, you can see that's going to go all the way around. So we're just going to take that to where we know the other little bit of mousse is, and just pinch it down. That's how I know that I'm going to have a full wrap around all the way around without having too much pancake as well. I'm just going to trim off this and then make sure that the cling film isn't wrapped into the Wellington. Really nice tight cling wrap. Finish by pinching this end nice and tight and then just rolling it, but not too aggressively. So there we go, that's our finished welly. Allow that to rest slightly, put it in your fridge for a minute, and then we're just going to get our pastry ready. More of our cling film. I wouldn't know many restaurants that would make their own puff pastry for this, just because the stuff that you can get is such consistent quality. If you want to do your own pastry, go for it. No, it's a massive undertaking making your own pastry at home, and this is rough puff, so it means there'll be layers of lamination. A layer of egg wash on the inside of the pastry. The egg wash will help the pancakes stick. You'll get a nice firm stick to the pancake layer from the pastry, which basically just makes it look a lot better. A good thing that helps with this is now at this point like a layer of charcuterie, or like people use Parma ham or something like that. So you could layer the Parma ham now, and then you could wrap it in the crepe. But I think for me it's just another sort of expense. Just gently wrap all the way around until your pastry reaches the other part, and then leave fairly like good overlap. Make sure that you don't get any sort of slits in the bottom, and then just finish it, roll it over. You've got a little bit of excess here. I actually just take this off. You can do a nice little crimp or something like that on the end, but I find it's more consistent just to take it off, and then lightly pinch your layer of pastry. I never really score my Wellingtons. You know, I don't have any like aversion to it. I just find that sometimes I'm worried about making sure the pastry is cooked all the way through, when actually I should be thinking about making sure that it's actually the beef that's the most important part. And this is great because I now know like exactly where my bottom's going to be. So it's going to be here on that fold, and that's how I'm going to rest it. I'm just going to let that set. So like that, basically let that egg yolk stick to that pancake layer in the fridge. I'll just take this out now. That's been in the fridge. It's actually probably only been in for about 40 minutes, but I'm just going to place that on there with a cut side down. I'm just going to apply a layer of egg wash, egg yolk. Back into the fridge, 10 minutes, whilst we preheat the oven. Okay, so to cook your Wellington, it's quite important that you preheat your oven. So I've got an oven at 220 degrees here. And importantly, I've got a tray, a heavy bottom tray in there, which is preheating. So this is raging hot. So this is good because what will happen is the nice preheated tray will already start cooking the base of your Wellington. So keep it super simple. 220 for 12 minutes, probably be about 22 minutes at 180. Okay, so we're just checking now. So what I'm looking for there is a temp of 30 degrees. Sometimes though it's really important when you probe things, because there's all that residual heat in the oven, just take it out of the oven and probe it again, because sometimes you can get a bit of a misleading reading. Oh, there you go, it's on 23. So I'm just going to whack it back in there for another 4 or 5 minutes. To keep it really simple, I know you probably don't have a temperature probe, but basically 30 degrees is like, is warm. Like warm to touch. It shouldn't be like in any way hot. It's just just means that it's got no chill to it. So what you want to do is get a metal skewer, a metal spike, anything, place it into the meat, either hold it against the top of your lip or just feel it with your hand, and if it's warm, it will definitely come up to medium rare, which is about 38 degrees. I'm just going to pull this out now. That has been in total 20 minutes at 180. 30 degrees, perfect. Needs about 15 minutes to rest up to temperature. The big reveal. Boom! Just going to serve this with a little bit of mustard gel. What we've got is the fillet of beef in the middle, beautiful medium rare, and then we've got a beautiful mushroom and chicken mousse, followed by a herb crepe, and then this really nice, perfectly cooked, flaky pastry all the way through. That is the perfect Wellington. Guys, remember to like and subscribe for more handy tips and tricks.
Action!